So the Child Development Service, what is it, and why would you refer to it rather than CAF or Vicky Burka?
The Paediatric Development Service is quite different from CAF. So they're based at Christchurch Hospital and they work mostly with developmental concerns. So like global developmental delay, things like autism, things like that, up to the age of 15. So if you're a young person, you've got questions about potential autism, then the referral would be directed to paediatrics for a review of that. But for anything else, mental health concerns, ADHD, anxiety, low mood, all of that stuff comes to us. It's quite different across the country. There's lots of the different areas of Te Whatu Ora work things quite differently. But for us here in Christchurch, the paediatric team do the autism assessments in those under the age of 15, and any other mental health concerns tend to come to us. So the GPs suss out kind of which pathway they should go on, gather the appropriate information. Spoiler alert, you need the school support form for both services. We both use the same paperwork, and that school support for health and wellbeing form that was developed by PEDS, us, and schools so that we got a really broad overview of what is going on for that young person. So it looks at a wide range of things like how the young person learns, how do they interact with their peers, what are the concerns that school has. The parent has the opportunity to kind of give us that information within the referral from the GP. So it's gold having that information come from the school as well. And like I say, paediatrics need that supporting information for their triage process as well.
And the GP, sometimes that gets a bit confusing for GPs. So they may inadvertently refer to the CAF services when they should have actually referred to the PEDS developmental team, and we will redirect that back and say this to the GP. This should have got, and the family whānau always get a copy of all our letters that we send to the GP, that this should have gone to the paediatric developmental team because you're querying, so for instance, autism. And there's information I understand within the listening to families videos about ASD, about ADHD, about lots of anxiety, lots of different reasons why the GP may be referring to us. So it's a really good place for the family whānau, even the young person, to go and have a look and suss it out a little bit more. Even so, that would be a good way maybe before they go to the GP to have a look there, to think, oh, is that something that I'm going for? What do we actually think it may be? Teachers, anybody can have a look at it. It's a great resource. We, with all our information that we send back to family whānau, we put one of the listening to families cards in with all our letters so that they get that information about how to access the resource.
We also do work really closely with paediatrics. I'm the liaison clinician who kind of works between both. So it works really well if we have a case that we think, should we maybe be sending this over to paediatrics, I can triage it with them, and vice versa. If they have cases that they think we might need some CAF support with this one, they'll give me a call and have a chat through that as well. So we've actually got quite a solid relationship with them now, which is great.
But not all referrals that the non-urgent, the routine referrals that come in, we won't do that with every single one. If it's very clear that the person's under 15 and from the information that we've got that it's ASD, autism, we will just send that back to the GP for the GP to do that, because the GP's that the primary carer for that family from a medical and mental health perspective, and for them to be understanding what's going on for that young person in the family whānau and to support them is a really good place for everybody to have that information, that one central place.
I feel like you're saying, so you wouldn't just forward the referral on to Child Development Services. Like, as a parent, I want you just to make it happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, not always.
As clinicians, we would like the GP to make that happen. So it doesn't necessarily fall back on the family to make another appointment and go back to the GP and say, can you do this referral? In an ideal world, what would happen is we would respond to that referral and say, we think you're asking about autism in someone who's under 15, here's the correct pathway where it should go. And while the family would get a copy of that communication, I guess we would hope that the GP would just follow that through and make that referral through to paediatrics without having to get the family back in, because hopefully they would have all of the required information before it was sent through to us anyway. Yes.
And also the family whānau can ring the GP and say, look, I've just got this letter.
Yeah.
Can you advise me? Rather than making an appointment, they may the reception team may be able to actually speak to the doctor or send it through to the practice nurses or the nurse practitioner there, and they may be able to say, yep, we're onto it. Or they may want them to come back to tease that out a little bit more. But that, again, sits with the GP to do that. And like Laura said, we're hoping that the GP will go, I can do that, and sends it off and lets the family know.
From our point of view, your general practitioner and nurse practitioner, they're your primary caregiver, really. So they need to be that central hub that has all of that information, and they need to be the ones that makes those referrals, because then if you as a family go back to the GP in 3 months' time and say, I haven't heard anything, they're the ones who are going to follow that up on your behalf. So yeah, they need to be the ones who kind of know the pathways the best.
And we understand that primary care GPs, nurse practitioners, they are just so slammed in that space as well. And so making a phone call, may be beneficial, because they may be able to sort that in amongst other, when they may have a time slot that they can actually think about, how do we do this, can we do that, and then follow up, rather than having the cost of going to the GP and things like that, So there's pressure everywhere in the system, and we acknowledge that GPs are really stretched, and we are aware, just as we are stretched, that the GP needs to know that stuff. They're going to look after that family long term, and the young person. So
we try to be supportive and give the correct information.